Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Welcome to another episode of Front Page. I'm your host, Scott Cameron Goulet. Russia has gathered massive troops on the Ukrainian border, causing worldwide concern. Will Putin invade Ukraine? The U.S. says he will. Moscow says they have no such plans. But what pushed the topic to the forefront of major media outlets was a comment by Joe Biden. Although the White House tried to remedy the situation afterwards, it still drew a lot of criticism. Okay, let's get into it. The Russian-Ukraine border is currently under a heavy war gloom, with Russian forces deploying around 100,000 troops to the area. It's also holding live ammunition exercises with its ally Belarus. On Thursday, January 20th, Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with British, German, and French foreign ministers in Berlin in an effort to present a unified front against a possible Russian invasion of Ukraine. Prior to the meeting, Blinken had visited Kiev and discussed the Russian threat with the Ukrainian president and other top officials. 8 years ago, Russia had sent troops to seize the Crimean Peninsula from Ukraine. According to CNN, the U.S. government has received intelligence indicating that Russia has spent special trained personnel to infiltrate eastern Ukraine and will attack pro-Russian separatist forces, thereby creating a pretext for a large-scale invasion by Russian forces. This coincides with an earlier statement issued by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. The statement accused Russian Special Operation Forces of planning provocations against Russian troops and then framing Ukraine for the crime. The official said this is the same situation that occurred in Crimea in 2014. Moscow, however, denies any plans to invade Ukraine. Instead, it accuses the West of using Ukraine as a provocation and cites the British recent use of military transport planes to deliver weapons and equipment to Ukraine as evidence. Moscow has also demanded security assurance from the United States and NATO, promising that NATO will not expand eastward and will not admit Ukraine to the organization. After delivering a speech on the Ukrainian situation in Berlin late on Thursday, Blinken departed for Geneva for talks with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on the situation on Friday. He hopes to convince Moscow to abandon its invasion of Ukraine through diplomatic means. Amid heightened tensions between Russia and the West, the U.S. delegation to NATO announced on January 19th the launch of cold response military exercises in March. It will bring 35,000 troops from 28 nations together. The U.S. Navy's 8th Carrier Strike Group, led by the aircraft carrier USS Harry S. Truman, will participate. Cold Response is a series of NATO exercises led by Norway that have been held every 2 years since 2006. Russia announced on January 20th that it will hold large-scale naval exercises in the Atlantic, Arctic, Pacific, and Mediterranean Oceans this month and in February. The Russian Defense Ministry said in a statement that the war exercises will involve more than 140 warships and auxiliary vessels, over 60 aircraft, 1,000 pieces of military equipment, and about 10,000 servicemen. Before we move on, please like and share this video in order to help us further spread the truth. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel. And if you have already subscribed, please double check to make sure that you are still subscribed. We here at Front Page thank you for your support. Okay, let's get back into it. The Associated Press reported that Joe Biden has made it clear that he has no intention of sending U.S. troops to war if Russia invades Ukraine, but he could still pursue a range of less dramatic but risky military operations, including providing support to Ukraine resistance movement in the event of a Russian invasion. The Associated Press believes that the U.S. will not intervene directly in the Russian-Ukrainian war. The U.S. has no treaty obligations to the Ukraine, and going to war with Russia itself is a big gamble with serious consequences, but doing too little would be equally risky. Biden warned Putin on Wednesday, saying,
"It is going to be a disaster for Russia if they further invade Ukraine, and that our allies and partners are ready to impose severe cost and significant harm on Russia and the Russian economy."
But Biden also disclosed that Western countries are not in agreement on how to respond to the crisis in Ukraine. Biden said, "It's one thing if it's a minor incursion, and we end up having to fight about what to do and not to do. That means a minor incursion into the country would not necessarily provoke a response from the United States." The White House later clarified that any action by Russian forces across the border would be considered an invasion and would be acted upon accordingly. And smaller acts of Russian aggression, such as cyber attacks, would be met with a reciprocal response. But Biden's statement has already sparked strong international backlash. The fear is that by saying so publicly, Biden would give Putin the green light to escalate an already dangerous situation. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky delivered an emergency evening speech right after Biden's remark to call for his citizens to keep calm and take a deep breath. Zelensky said, "Keep your head calm and cool. Remain confident in your strength, in your army, in our Ukraine. Do not get anxious. React smartly to everything, not emotionally, with your head, not your heart." He also tweeted on Thursday, "We want to remind the great powers that there are no minor incursions in small nations, just as there are no minor casualties and little grief from the loss of loved ones." A NATO diplomat told CNN that there is a sobering truth in Zelensky's words. There's some truth there, but then again, it's not like the Russians didn't know that, say, a cyber attack against Ukraine wouldn't trigger a full-scale response. Foreign diplomats and experts said that Biden's comments pointed to the harsh reality as tensions rise on the border. NATO allies are not at all on the same page. Riho Terras, a former commander of Estonia's military, said that Biden's comments could simply encourage Putin to seize the opportunity and launch a minor incursion, but by his own definition. Republicans believe Biden's response to Russia was not tough enough and risked creating a split between the U.S. and Europe. Republicans believe there should be more and tougher responses than sanctions, including accelerating military aid to Ukraine. The fact that European countries are not united in their stance on Russia is apparent this week. The recently completed but not yet fully operational Nord Stream 2 gas pipeline runs from Russia to Germany via the Baltic Sea. This gives Germany leverage against the Russian invasion of Ukraine. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz said that he would consider halting the Nord Stream 2 project if Russia attacked Ukraine. Britain announced on Monday that it has decided to supply light anti-armor defense weapons systems to Ukraine. The first batch of weapons was delivered on Monday with a small number of British personnel to provide short-term training. French President Emmanuel Macron said the European Parliament should seek a new security agreement with Russia and conduct its own dialogue with the Kremlin, but the proposal did not receive much response. Alexander Stubb, former Prime Minister of Finland, which borders Russia, says that while strengthening European defenses would certainly help, it would not be in Finland's interest to duplicate what NATO is already doing. NATO is the US-led military alliance that underpins European security. Most European countries are members of NATO. Observers point out that during the Cold War, NATO confronted Warsaw Pact countries. Now, the Warsaw Pact countries have joined NATO. NATO is at a loss because it lost its main opponent. President Donald Trump even threatened in July of 2018 to pull the US out of NATO. Macron also said that NATO is becoming brain dead. However, those countries that formerly lived under Soviet rule are deeply suspicious of doing anything that could undermine NATO. The Russian military threat to Ukraine has once again made the 30-member NATO alliance feel the importance of uniting together to deal with the threat. European Commissioner President Ursula von der Leyen said that Europe would respond to Russian aggression with massive economic and financial sanctions, and that the transatlantic alliance stands firm on the issue. She said, "This is nothing less than a question of maintaining peace in Europe. For us, it is existential." Russia also wants to establish dominance in Central Asia. It has put its hand in the recent Kazakhstan crisis. We published a video on this topic on our membership site. I want to show you the trailer. The situation in Kazakhstan was stabilized after Russian troops intervened, but they have now left the country. The incident first started as a result of the oil and gas price increase, but then the situation changed in some confusing ways when former Prime Minister Karim Mazimov was arrested immediately after his dismissal, and President Karim Jomart Tokayev officially qualified the demonstrations as a coup attempt. So what exactly is going on there? Russia's influence in Central Asia, and in particular Kazakhstan's dependence on Moscow, will increase with this military deployment by Putin's authorities. The Chinese Communist Party, the United States, and the European Union all have substantial interests in the region, so how will the situation in Kazakhstan affect the world's political landscape? I invite you to watch this exclusive episode on our membership site, frontpageshow.com. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please don't forget to like and subscribe this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth. Again, thank you for watching Front Page, and we will see you next time.